Welcome to our lecture on exercise 10.3, a walkthrough of an exercise to add a border to a field. In this exercise, we're going to complete exercise 10.3. That is based on exercise 5.2, so if you haven't done that previously, you'll need to go back and finish that before you can go on with the lesson. And with 5.2 in hand, we'll walk through 10.3. And 10.3 is not a graded report. However, 10.4, which uses it as a starting point, is. So it's going to be important that we complete exercise 10.3, adding a border around the field. So we'll begin by opening up 5.2, and we'll save that out as 10.3, border around field. We're going to delete the photo field and then take the remaining fields and shift them to the left. We'll make the details section a little bit smaller vertically because the photo will be gone, so we won't need all that extra space. We'll use the section expert to add a second details section, details B, right underneath that, where we're going to add the notes field from the employee table. Now the notes sometimes can be quite lengthy, but often are more brief, so we're going to make sure that we establish a minimum size for that field that is aesthetically pleasing but doesn't waste a lot of space, and that we're going to make sure that the default can grow property is set so that the field can be larger, so it doesn't truncate the contents of the notes when those are a little bit lengthier. And then we're going to add a border and a drop shadow to make those notes aesthetically attractive and a little bit more readable. So at the end, don't forget to save your changes if you had saved it at the outset as 10.3 border around field, and you will be good to go for starting on exercise 10.4, which follows. In this video, I'll demonstrate a walkthrough of exercise 10.3, adding a border to a field. Note that this exercise, 10.3, requires that you already have completed exercise 5.2. So if you haven't already done that, please go back and do so and then resume the video. We'll pick up from that point. And 10.3 is not a graded exercise. However, it is necessary in order to complete exercise 10.4, which is. All right, so let's begin by opening report E52. All right, and with that report open, let's make sure we're in the design view. And we're going to drop the photo field. That's no longer needed. And then let's take the remaining fields and slide them over to the left. And shorten up the details section. And then we need to add a second details section. So if we right click over in the section, we can use the section expert and come into details and say insert, and that will give us a details A and a details B. The new section will be details B. All right, so now we have a details B section here, and it looks like we could tighten up a little bit more on our details A. So let's go ahead and do that. And in details B, we're going to add the notes field from the employee table. So back over in our field explorer, let's take a look at the employee and then notes. And let's put notes in details B. And let's make that a little longer and wider than it is currently. Maybe about like so. And we want that notes section to be able to grow even larger if it has more notes than will fit in that. So that kind of establishes the minimum size. And so let's make sure that that setting for that field is at its default, which would be to allow it to grow. And so if we right click and take a look at the properties of that field. Oops. Yeah, in the format field. And let's make sure in the common settings that it is set so that it is can grow, and it is. So I can show you what that looks like off, but it should be by default checked on. And so with that field set that it can grow, it will become larger on the page to accommodate all of the content. So the contents won't get truncated if the notes don't fit in that one small line. Also, by making the notes kind of a minimum size, then we won't waste space in the event that notes are shorter and don't need the additional space. So it's kind of a way to make some intelligence in the formatting of your report. All right. Then next, let's go ahead and again, right-click, and in the formatting of the field, let's take a look at the border section. And let's see here. How do we want to format this? Let's add a drop shadow. That will be attractive and improves readability. And then let's change the left and right sides to a dotted line. So left, dotted, right, dotted, and let's take the top and bottom and make them single. Okay. And that should be about it. Let's preview that and see what that looks like in action. Okay, so we notice that here in our second record, the record size has grown, or the layout size has grown, so that it accommodates all of the notes, whereas it hasn't grown as much in our first record. And so that lays out quite nicely. And then before we forget, let's remember to save this under its new name. File, Save As, and we want to call this exercise 10.3 border around field. And with that done, we're prepared to move on to exercise 10.4. Thank you for watching. This concludes the lesson.